We don't have the evidence in this case to know for sure whether or not Summer was abducted or whether or not she walked away from her home and became lost. I would say this case has not gone cold.
A special and heartfelt greeting to those joining our community for the very first time. You have arrived at a crucial moment. We are gathered here, not for spectacle, but for a singular, unwavering purpose, to find a missing child, and to unravel a truth that has been buried for far too long. The story we share today is one of profound sadness, of a mystery that has gripped a nation, and of a flicker of new hope that demands our collective attention. I ask you, from the very outset, to join us in this mission. If this story moves you, if you feel that spark of determination to see justice served, then your voice is needed. Please like this video. Share it with everyone you know. Subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. We are not just viewers here. We are a search party. Together, we can amplify this signal. We can push this story to the very front of the public consciousness. And we can assist the dedicated men and women of the FBI and TBI in their critical work. Summer Wells has been missing for over 3 years. She deserves to be found. She deserves to come home. And we will not stop until that happens. Now, let us walk together into the heart of this mystery. The mountains of East Tennessee hold a deep, ancient silence. In the summer, that silence is filled with the hum of cicadas, a sound so constant it becomes the very texture of the air. On Ben Hill Road, a winding, rugged stretch nestled in the community of Beech Creek, that hum became the backdrop to an unthinkable tragedy. It was Tuesday, June 15, 2021. A 5-year-old girl with bright eyes named Summer Moon Wells was last seen by her young brothers. They said she walked out the basement door of their home, a door that led to a steep, wooded hillside. And then, she was gone. The alarm was raised. The world descended upon Hawkins County. Search teams combed the dense, unforgiving terrain. Helicopters thrummed overhead. The community printed flyers and prayed. In those first frantic hours, the story presented to the public was one of a tragic wanderer, a little girl who may have simply gotten lost in the vast, green wilderness that surrounded her home. But almost immediately, the narrative began to crack under the weight of its own inconsistencies and the harsh glare of public scrutiny. The eyes of the world, and of the digital sleuths who now populate the modern public square, turned first and most intensely upon Summer's parents, Don and Candace Wells. Their early press conferences were studies in raw, human devastation. The hollowed look, the trembling voices, the pleas for their daughter's return. It was a portrait of grief that many recognized and empathized with deeply. A wave of support crested under the hashtag #FindSummerWells, a beacon of pure, collective hope. Yet, in another corner of the internet, a different analysis was taking place. Armchair detectives dissected every micro-expression, every pause, every slight variation in the retelling of that day's events. They noted the differences between the parents' account and the simple statement given by Summer's siblings to Sheriff Ronnie Lawson that night. A seed of doubt was planted. Why did the stories not align perfectly? Why did certain details seem to shift? The parents' eventual retreat from the relentless media spotlight was interpreted by some not as a need for privacy in their anguish, but as a strategic withdrawal. A new, darker hashtag began to trend, Wells Family Truth. The court of public opinion had irrevocably split. One camp saw a family being crucified by speculation during the worst moment of their lives. The other saw a performance, a script with troubling holes. Comment sections became battlegrounds. "No innocent parent would ever stop searching," clashed with, "Have you no compassion? They are living a nightmare." The case, still fresh and raw, was already mired in a toxic swamp of accusation and counter-accusation. The focus was myopic, trained almost exclusively on the home from which Summer vanished. But what if that focus was wrong? What if, in staring so intently at the point of departure, we all missed the path that was taken? To understand that path, we must return to the only unbiased witnesses in the immediate aftermath, the search dogs. In the critical first hours and days, highly trained K-9 units were brought to the Wells property. They were given Summer's scent, likely from a piece of her clothing. These animals, their instincts honed to a fine point, went to work. They did not mill about the yard or the front driveway. They quickly picked up a trail and led their handlers down a steep, narrow path known locally as the Dog Trail, a rugged descent through the woods from the Wells home down to the asphalt of Ben Hill Road itself. The dogs worked with purpose, following that invisible ribbon of scent. And then, at the point where the soft earth met the hard, sun-baked pavement of the road, they stopped. They circled. They grew confused. The immediate, logical conclusion drawn by the public and many commentators was stark. The trail ended because Summer was placed into a vehicle at that spot. It was the clearest sign of an abduction. A stranger in a car, a moment of opportunity, a quick snatch, and a getaway. It was a horrible but simple explanation that seemed to fit the evidence. But that conclusion, we have learned from experts in canine search and rescue, is likely a profound and critical misinterpretation. The science of scent is a delicate thing. A dog tracking on a natural surface, dirt, leaves, grass, is following a concentration of odor cells that settle and linger. The scent is strong, the trail coherent. The dog's natural drive is to follow that scent to where it grows strongest, to its source. When that trail hits an artificial, non-porous surface like asphalt or concrete, everything changes. On a hot summer day, that pavement acts like a frying pan. Scent molecules dissipate violently, scattering, rising, and weakening at a dramatic rate. The dog is not hitting a wall. It is experiencing a radio signal turning to static. The scent doesn't vanish, it shatters. For the dog, this is deeply confusing. Its entire programming says the scent should be getting stronger, leading forward. Instead, the signal frays and fades. A well-trained handler knows this. They will often restart the dog at that very spot, trying to pick up the new, fainter signature of where the scent may have drifted or continued. This crucial nuance was actually confirmed by Sheriff Ronnie Lawson himself in a later interview, a piece of footage often overlooked in the rush to judgment. When asked about the dogs, he stated plainly, "The dogs had a pretty good trail track for a little while, but then it disappeared when it come to the road. Sometimes canines, they will lose the scent when it changes different type." His words are a key that unlocks a different possibility. The end of the trail at the road is not a period. It is a semicolon. It suggests not necessarily a vehicle, but a change in the conditions of the journey. Perhaps she was put in a car. Or perhaps, the person carrying her simply stepped onto the road for a short distance, their footprints leaving no scent for the dog to lock onto, before moving back into the woods on the other side. This leads us to the second, and perhaps most chilling, piece of physical evidence, the footprints. 4 days after Summer disappeared, on June 19th, during a desperate, all-night search involving multiple agencies and volunteers, a local landowner made a discovery that would send a new, icy current through the investigation. On his property, which bordered the Wells land, he found a single, fresh, barefoot child's footprint. Not far away, on the property of a relative of the Wells family, a second matching print was discovered. The landowner was adamant. These were not the prints of his own children. He stated his kids were never barefoot in the woods. The search dogs were brought to these prints. They alerted. This was Summer's scent. The prints were recent, left in the days since her disappearance. But it was the nature of these prints that whispered a terrifying story. The landowner, in detailed online posts that were later deleted but preserved by those closely following the case, offered a heartbreaking analysis. He noted that there were only 2 prints found, spaced a considerable distance apart. There was no trail of small steps, no meandering path of a lost child. His conclusion, based on a lifetime of knowing that land, was this: it did not look like someone walking. It looked like someone being carried. A person carrying a child might set them down for a brief moment, to adjust their grip, to cross a difficult patch, leaving an isolated print, before lifting them again and continuing on. This changes the entire image. This is no longer a little girl, confused and alone, wandering the woods. This is the image of a child being transported, silently and with purpose, through the forest. This revelation triggered a frantic, focused search in that specific area. Law enforcement and volunteers returned to it again and again. A haunting theory began to circulate among the searchers, one so disturbing it defied logic. Could Summer have been taken, and then, for some unfathomable reason, brought back to these woods near her home? The searches were exhaustive, driven by this dreadful hope. They found nothing more. But the testimony of those two lonely footprints remained. They were a compass pointing not to the open road, but to a hidden route. They suggested a path through the trees, behind natural ridge lines that provided cover, a route chosen by someone who did not want to be seen from the houses on Ben Hill Road. This was not the panicked act of a random passerby. This was a deliberate, knowledgeable evasion. And this is the question that now rises, heavy and unavoidable. Who? Who knows these woods so well they could navigate them unseen? Who knows the hidden deer trails, the contours of the land that mask movement, the precise distance between properties? The answer points not to a stranger in a passing car, but to the land itself, and to the people who are part of its fabric. For generations the name, Hill, has been stamped on this part of Hawkins County. Ben Hill, the patriarch, gave his name to the road. His children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren are woven into the community. They own land. They run businesses. They know every hollow and every creek. And slowly, inevitably, the gaze of the investigation began to turn in that direction. The murmurs online grew from whispers to a clear, discernible name, Paul Hill. A member of this extended family. His property was not on Ben Hill Road, however. It was located 9.5 miles away, on Van Hill Road. Then, in the fall of 2023, a seismic shift occurred. Credible sources, and eventually official confirmation, revealed that the FBI and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation had executed a major search warrant at the property of Paul Hill in the 3500 block of Van Hill Road. Federal agents were photographed on the land. The search was methodical and deliberate. What led them there? The trigger, according to information provided by sources close to the investigation, was a vehicle, a red Toyota Tacoma truck. This truck, once registered to the Hill family, had been sold in 2022. The FBI tracked it down. What they found inside that truck remains a closely guarded secret, known only to the investigators and a grand jury. But it was significant. So significant that it provided the probable cause needed to obtain a warrant to turn the Hill property inside out. This is no longer rumor or speculation. This is a documented, high-level law enforcement action. The connection is now a matter of record. Paul Hill is the son of Ben Hill. The family tree of the road's namesake is now under the microscope of the most powerful investigative agency in the world. Another thread then emerged, one that seemed to connect back to the very first hours of the case. It is a matter of public record that members of the Hill family are involved in the tree trimming business. This fact intersects eerily with a piece of the puzzle from long ago. In the early, chaotic weeks of the investigation, an independent journalist happened to interview a tree trimmer who had been working on Ben Hill Road on the morning of June 15, 2021. The audio of that interview was poor, the conversation rushed. But within that muffled recording was a staggering claim. The tree trimmer suggested he may have seen a little girl that morning. For years, this interview was an anomaly, a blurry fragment that didn't seem to connect to anything. Now, it resonates with a disturbing new frequency. A tree trimming business connected to the Hill family. A tree trimmer on the road that fateful morning. A vehicle connected to the Hill family triggering an FBI raid. The pieces do not yet form a complete picture. They form a constellation of suspicion, pointing relentlessly back to a single, rooted location, the world of Ben Hill Road and the family that defines it. The online reaction to this shift has been volcanic. The old, toxic debates about the Wells parents have been subsumed by a new, more focused frenzy. The hashtag Van Hill Road now trends alongside Find Summer Wells. The theories have evolved, grown more complex. The community of online investigators is now scouring property records, family connections, and old social media posts, building a map not just of a crime, but of a community's hidden relationships. It was a local all along, writes one commenter, a sentiment now echoed by thousands. They knew the land. They knew the routines. Another responds with the crucial, unanswered question. But why? What is the motive? What connects the Wells family to the Hill family? And a third, more ominous thought persists. What if they knew each other better than anyone has let on? What if this was personal? The emotional landscape of this case is now a tangled, painful web. For the Wells family, this redirection of the investigation must be a vortex of conflicting emotions, a potential vindication from years of suspicion, mixed with the horrifying possibility that the answer was a neighbor, a familiar face. For the extended Hill family, it is the sudden, terrifying experience of being the subject of whispers, stares, and the unblinking eye of federal scrutiny. For the community of Beech Creek, it is the of trust, the fear that the monster was not an outsider, but one of their own. And for Summer? She remains the silent heart of this storm. A little girl whose absence has now painted a picture of a hidden journey through the trees, of a truck that held a secret, of a family's legacy shadowed by suspicion. We are left with questions that are more urgent and more specific than ever before. What forensic evidence was discovered inside that red Toyota Tacoma? Was it a fiber, a hair, a trace of soil that matched the Wells property? Who was the tree trimmer who spoke to the journalist, and which specific family business was he working for that day? How does a person traverse nearly a mile of rugged Appalachian woodland carrying a child, and leave only 2 footprints as evidence? And the most profound question of all, in a tight-knit, rural community where generations are intertwined, how many secrets can the land hold before the truth forces its way to the surface? This is where we stand today. The investigation into the disappearance of Summer Wells has undergone a fundamental and dramatic pivot. It is no longer a simple search. It is a forensic audit of a place and its people. It is about motive buried in old grievances, in hidden relationships, in the quiet history of a rural road. The ghost haunting Ben Hill Road is not a spirit. It is knowledge. It is the knowledge of the terrain. It is the knowledge of timing. It is the knowledge of how to move unseen. And that kind of ghost is always human. My friends, this is why we cannot look away. This is why we must share this story. The authorities are actively working. The FBI is on the ground. But they need eyes. They need awareness. They need anyone who has even the smallest piece of this puzzle to feel compelled to come forward. Perhaps you are watching from Hawkins County. Perhaps you knew someone who worked for a tree trimming crew in the summer of 2021. Perhaps you heard a conversation, saw something on that old road that didn't seem important then, but now clicks into place. Perhaps you have knowledge of the relationships between the families in that community. No detail is too small. Your memory could be the key. This is our call to action. This is our shared responsibility. Summer Wells has been missing for over 1,000 days. Her family has endured a pain beyond description. It is time for this mystery to end. Help us. Like this video to push it into the feeds of millions. Share it across every social media platform you use. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications. We will be here, reporting every verified development, following this trail to its end. Together, we can create a wave of attention that cannot be ignored. Together, we can assist the FBI in closing this case. Together, we can bring Summer home. The mountains of Tennessee have kept their secret long enough. It is time for the silence to break. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for joining this search. God bless you, and God bless Summer Wells. We will not stop.